We talk a lot here at Nomad Capitalist about tax-friendly and tax-free places where you can go and live. But if you're a high net worth individual or an ultra high net worth individual, your needs are likely going to be different than that of the entrepreneur who's making an income but doesn't have as much capital to invest. So in this video, I'm going to share my strategy for tax-friendly living for high net worth individuals. My name is Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how our Nomad Capitalist team can help you create and execute a holistic offshore strategy, you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, as a real-world practitioner of this whole Nomad Capitalist tax-free living global citizen thing, I like to pick up on trends that I see from people that we help. And I like to also study how I've evolved from when I was just a young upstart entrepreneur researching this stuff to now being much more established. And so one of the things that I often run into for people who are just starting up is they'll hear from a friend or from a family member or from the media, hey, you should move to New Zealand, or hey, you should move to Singapore. This often comes early on in their offshore research life cycle where they don't entirely understand what's involved in moving to these places, but it just sounds like a good idea. And so here's the reality. The countries that are in the most demand naturally have the highest price tags. This is why I focus here at Nomad Capitalist in looking for the next big thing or the next Singapore. Because a place like Singapore is already rather pricey. They don't need more immigrants. They don't need more capital. Their banks don't need you. Their real estate market doesn't need you. Like, they really don't need you. And so they put up barriers, and as with any supply and demand situation, they simply raise the price of admission. And so let's say you have $5 million in net worth, and a good chunk of that is liquid. You could take $2 million of that, invest it in a Singaporean fund to get permanent residence, but that may not be the best use of your capital. And so while people do come to me and say, hey, I have $5 million, let me do this program for $1 million, this program for $2 million, $3 million, whatever, it's really hard to execute on that. Let's say you have $10 million, $20 million, $50 million. We see people who have those amounts, and I think that that's when you can really start to get into some of these more established residence programs, established citizenship programs. We had someone come to us recently, sold a company for over $200 million, wanted to get the best second passport. He wanted to become Maltese through the Malta Citizenship by Investment Program. He didn't want to mess around with Dominica. The guy's got $200 million. What's he need, a $100,000 passport? He can easily afford a $1 million passport. And so, what I think is really important is really understanding your limits when you get into this offshore stuff. And so let's say that you're a high net worth or ultra high net worth individual and you want to go and live overseas. One thing that I would suggest for someone, let's say $10 million or more, once you're in the 8 figures, I think it's okay to explore some of these higher level programs like the Singapores, the New Zealands, the Monacos, etc. What I would suggest that you do is while you're doing that, let's say you move to Monaco, dip a toe into some of the more emerging market programs. I could afford to live in Monaco, but it'd be really painful. I just don't see the value, quite frankly. Now, listen, I don't have $200 million. So I guess if I did, maybe it wouldn't be as painful. But for me, I could live in Singapore. I choose to live in Malaysia. Malaysia, to me, has more going on. It's more interesting. And within what I call the nomad bubble, it's not quite, the level of development is a little bit lower than Singapore. You do have a piece of trash here or there, whereas in Singapore you have like nothing, no trash anywhere. But to me, it almost adds character. And so what I would suggest is if you're going to start out with one of the programs I'm going to mention in this video, that you do some traveling around and you see, okay, I'm in Monaco, but hey, is there somewhere in, is Montenegro interesting for me? I'm going to go to Canada, but could Panama work for me or something like that? I think that what I found in working with folks in the 8 and 9 figures is it's best to start out with what you want, but I would encourage you to look at some of the alternatives out there. So let me tell you some programs that you may or may not have heard about. The number one program that is a great fit for ultra high net worth individuals is Monaco. People know Monaco is a tax-free country. there obviously are some taxes on things like some certain capital gains and stuff, but you can live there and the tax man will basically leave you alone so long as you're not a French citizen. You do need to put in some time on the ground there. You can't simply go and get what we call a paper residence and spend one day there and get the tax benefits. It's not that simple. You do need to live there, but obviously all of your neighbors are going to be very successful people. I had a friend who we did some work with who bought an apartment for about 2 million euros, and that was kind of like, oh, 2 million. We were looking at parking spaces at one point, and a halfway decent parking space will cost you $500,000 up to €1 million. So if that's the level that you're in, you want to live in Southern Europe, you want to live on the Mediterranean, that appeals to you, and you want those high quality neighbors, then Monaco is still a great option. You have to put some money in the bank, about €500,000. You have to buy a property or rent a property, and you better be prepared to invest some money. So that's a good option. One option that people don't talk about, number two, you don't hear about it as much, is Jersey. Now, Jersey has a connection to the United Kingdom, but it does govern its own affairs. And so by doing that, they're able to have a very tax-friendly system. You can run a company from Jersey and pay basically no tax. You can also go as a person of means and you can pay essentially a flat tax of about £145,000 a year. So if you're making millions or tens of millions of dollars a year, Jersey's an interesting option that we have looked at for a few people recently. And what's interesting about Jersey is you can get all kinds of beautiful manor houses with amazing gardens, things that you could never get in Monaco because Monaco is 1 square kilometer. There's no room. They're literally building a sandbar out into the sea, and it's increasing their area by like 15%. So Jersey is very interesting because you have the water. It's a bit chillier. What I have seen from the few individuals we've worked with who were looking at something where that would work for them, who were looking at buying a $10 million property, they almost kind of liked the idea that there were 4 seasons. So obviously Jersey is not a place if you're looking for fun in the sun year round, but you have a lot of great options. You have that UK connection. You have a very developed infrastructure. You're very close to London, and again, lots of successful people live in Jersey. Lots of infrastructure there. Definitely a place, not a country technically, but a place that's worth considering. Another place that I think is very interesting for folks who want the best of everything, who want a great level of service, is the UAE. Living in Dubai, living in Abu Dhabi, 2 cities with distinctive characters. Dubai, obviously, more go, more entertainment-based. Abu Dhabi, a bit more old money, you might say. Both are very interesting places to go. And what's amazing about the UAE is the standard of service is really great. For someone like myself who simply doesn't want to drive, it's nice that every time you order an Uber, a Lexus pulls up. You're not getting some guy's, Renault that has a dent in the side of it. You're being, picked up on time in a nice car. You're being driven around. All the services you could possibly want are available. If you like amazing shopping, it's there. Now, obviously, some people have some misgivings about parts of the Middle East. I have not lived in the UAE, but every time I go there and do business, you're treated very well. I think it's definitely a place that's worth considering. You can buy a property. Property is relatively affordable by high net worth standards when you're comparing to Jersey, to Monaco, to those places. You can buy a property, get a residence permit, live there, spend a good amount of time every year there, and you'll qualify for their zero tax program, and you'll be able to use that as your tax base in the world. So a place that's very straightforward, 0% headline tax jurisdiction. You can get all the infrastructure you need to keep your life tax-free. Elsewhere in Asia, number 4, I think that one of the most interesting places, especially for me, is Singapore. Singapore is interesting because not only do you have a lot of successful people where 1 out of every 5 people almost are US dollar millionaires. You have people from all over the world who have accomplished a lot in finance, increasingly in the arts and other industries who live in Singapore. You've got a bit of a cultural fabric. People at times say Singapore is sterile, and again, I think that Malaysia is a bit more vibrant, has a bit more character, just in the sense of it's not perfect. But if you're looking for a place that's very well put together, that has a great cultural fabric, that has cohesion, does everyone in Singapore love each other? No. But they do a pretty good job for a country that is so multicultural. I mean, for years they've said, hey, we're Singaporeans. And there's a great cultural fabric there as a result. You've got everything that you want. You've got a great airport. Things just work. I think better, quite frankly, than anywhere in Europe, including the UK, including Jersey, including Monaco. The post office, everything is just super efficient. They have made the place really run very efficiently. And so if you have about $2 million US to invest into a fund, you can go and live in Singapore. You could also go by starting and running a business that's more restrictive. But I think Singapore is a great place, and especially if you're someone who wants to take place in the new changing economy and looking at the Asian century, talking about investing in frontier and emerging markets as we do here at Nomad Capitalist, you are a stone's throw away from a lot of them. You are a stone's throw away from not only Malaysia, which is more livable, but the Cambodias, the Myanmars, the Indonesias, the Vietnams, places that are up and coming. And I think places that, quite frankly, could be livable, even for a very successful person. Number 5, let's talk about islands. The Bahamas. Number 6, the Cayman Islands. Number 7, Antigua and Barbuda. The Cayman Islands have someone right now buying a property for about $1 million in the Cayman Islands, setting up his home there, setting up his tax base there, another 0% tax rate jurisdiction, great place to go. The Bahamas, the same. In both of those islands, if you buy real estate, you can get a residence permit. The more real estate you buy, the faster you get your residence permit. Antigua and Barbuda, I include, probably not quite as interesting for the high net worth investor. However, if you just want to get right to securing your right to live there, Antigua does have a citizenship program, and it's one of the few citizenship programs that are not only pretty livable, but that there is a 0% tax rate. So you can live there gladly, tax-free on all your personal income. So depends on what you're looking for, really. I know some folks that we talk to, they really like the idea of Europe. They like that developed world, that Anglosphere that Jersey has, or they like the French influence that Monaco has. Some people like island living. They just want to be left alone with beautiful beaches out in the middle of the ocean. Other people like the amazing services of a place like the UAE, or a place that has a great local economy like Singapore with so much going on. Those are some places that I think are definitely worth considering. And as I said, once you settle into one of those places, once you make your investment, whether it's anywhere from a couple $100,000 in real estate up to a couple $1 million into funds or real estate, go and take a look around. Get your taxes in order, get your affairs in order, get the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle going, and then use it as a jumping off point to look at other places that might interest you to live or for investing. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.